everybody. This is Dr. Lori Shemek.
And I'm Omar Cumberbatch. You're listening to This Podcast Burns Fat. Hey, Lori, how are you today?
Hi, Omar. I am doing wonderful. Yay. It's springtime.
Yeah, no, it's been really nice up here in the
Yeah.
Northeast. It's really, yeah, I can't complain. It's not, we had two really hot days, which like the allergies kicked up and it was brutal. It was
Yeah.
like 90. And then it just
Wow.
dropped back to the kind of normal 70. So I'm hoping that we get a official spring and not just jump to 90 and stay.
Yeah. I think
Well,
pretty soon, everyone can declare no snow,
yeah,
no
yeah.
cold. Yeah.
Thank God. Yeah, we had an
Yeah.
easy winter up here, so I can't complain.
Oh, lucky you.
Yeah, so today we have a
Yeah.
guest who is going to enlighten us on something that is really important, and that's like the distinction between diabetes type 1 and 2. And I wanted to like really just share a quick story about like my ignorance
Mhm.
of it, and I think you probably can tell during the show that I didn't know much about that distinction. But I got roasted. I told you this story a little
Yeah.
while ago, like about it wasn't even a joke. It was like a meme that I had reposted about just it was about candy and diabetes, and someone just saw it on my I think it was Facebook at the time, and they just tore into me because it was just something that this person had type 1 and was basically really upset that she thought I was making fun of diabetes when it wasn't about that at all. It was really just about a lifestyle choice. And what Melissa Slemp comes in today to tell us is really like a lot of people do not have the choice. Type 1 diabetes is something that is just that yeah, for her especially, it was just something that's set on at age 14 and she's been living
Mhm.
with it for 4 years. So it's really, that's what I got out of this show mostly, because it was really just to make a true distinction that obviously blood sugar is paramount in many ways, but in different ways as well.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to know the difference. And, type 2 diabetes is rampant, but type 1 is now being considered an autoimmune issue. And so Melissa Slemp is a certified health coach. She specializes in blood sugar control for type 1 and type 2. So this is for everybody. Generally, the rules are the same, I would say, just with some distinctions, but very important ones as well. So it's definitely a good show.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's jump into it.
Okay.
Hey, Melissa, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here with you and Lori, Omar.
Thanks for stopping by, Melissa. Happy to have you.
Yes, my pleasure.
Yeah, so it's really exciting to have you. I know that we've talked about diabetes in a couple of different ways on the show, but type 1 diabetes is a different situation for a lot of people, and you've been dealing with this for a majority of your life. So I was just want to let the audience get to know you a little bit better and talk about that as well, like the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes and how you eventually became such an expert in this field and disseminated such useful information for people to deal with this disease.
Oh, yeah. And it's such a great question, because I think when people typically hear the word diabetes or, the disease diabetes, they think of, they kind of have a clouded image of exactly what that is. I even have people close to me that, over the years, they tend to understand it more and more when they're around me, but they kind of put us all in one bucket. But there's a big difference between type 1 and type 2. So I was 14 years old, almost 15. So that was 41 years ago. So I just, what we call in the diabetes community, I celebrated my diaversary, which is, at this point, we got to have fun with it. So, so 41 years, and it sounds overwhelming. It was overwhelming in the earlier years when I didn't know as much about myself, the disease, and just holistic living, which is what I continue to learn and practice and coach, which is what I do. But I was diagnosed as a teenager, and the very usual normal symptoms, the extreme thirst, constant urination, losing weight, feeling terrible. Again, this was 1982, so we didn't even have internet back then, right? So the information wasn't as readily available as far as what I was feeling and, what it was pointing to. So I started off, doing what I'm doing now, basically, which is daily injections, which is what type 1 is. So our pancreas basically says, yes,
can I
go ahead.
interrupt? How old were
Yeah.
you when you were diagnosed?
I was 14.
Oh,
14.
okay.
Yeah, just a teenager. So, and there's lots of other stuff going on when you're a teenager,
Mm-hmm.
hormones. So,
Mm-hmm.
so that was interesting, and I was really in denial for many years. And I look back, and I think it was just lack of education that as to it being a chronic illness that doesn't have a cure. I just kind of put it on the back burner, took my insulin, ate what I ate. I was a pretty active teenager, so it all seemed to be working okay. But fast forward about 10 years, I was just newly married, 25 years old. So at this point, I'm living with type 1. Again, if you want me to back up and just explain the difference, I think that might better explain the whole picture.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah. Because, with type 1, basically our pancreas says we're not working anymore. So the islet cells, which produce insulin, are no longer functioning for us. So in a nutshell, when we have type 1 diabetes, we have to give ourselves insulin. So what your body does on its own, when you eat and you are bringing glucose into the cells, your insulin produces, or your pancreas is producing insulin to pull that glucose into the cells to use as energy. And I know it's a science project, right? It's definitely, it's a lot of numbers. It's a lot of and I think maybe that's what confuses people, because they don't really understand, that organ in the body and what it does. But yeah,
essentially the pancreas, like you said, they shut down in terms of insulin. And with type 2, if for most people, they're still working, they're still getting insulin, but sometimes not enough.
Or it's, your body's just not as sensitive or functioning. And this as well, Lori and Omar, we all know this, that it's really lifestyle driven, and things that we do that can help support our pancreas and what it needs to do every day when we're living with type 2, or even at early stage with pre-diabetes. It's really knowing what's going on and recognizing, our habits, which are really driving the symptoms. So high blood sugar is a symptom, which is a reflection of our lifestyle and, all the other things. And sometimes there's other things going on too. It's definitely not a one size fits all, even diagnosis either. It can be very individual.
For sure. Yeah. Well, I know there are more people, I believe, running around with type 2 diabetes than type 1. And I think some people are born with type 1. It's rare to get it as an adult, but you can. But type 2 is, like you said, largely generated via lifestyle. Yes. And but what are the main distinctions in terms of how so would you be, so if somebody is a type 2 taking insulin, would they be taking as much as somebody with type 1?
Oh, it's such a loaded question, because it really depends on the person and what they're eating, right? And how much
that
they're
makes
moving.
Sense.
So all the things
Totally,
that affect, all the things that affect our glucose can be aided by insulin. But that number and that insulin dose, if needed, it's such a unique it's such a unique way for a doctor to work with that patient, to determine what they need.
So the management is just individual.
It sure is.
Okay.
Yes.
So I guess one of the things that you had mentioned earlier is that you actually were losing weight when you were diagnosed as type 1. And, the show is obviously about weight loss, weight management, and sugar and blood sugar relate to that
Mm-hmm.
significantly. Can you talk about maybe why that happened to you and just in general what
Why it
these,
happens.
yeah, why it happens
Yeah,
exactly?
it's a good question. So what happens when you have too much insulin on board? So, and this is a good example with those that are suffering or, being diagnosed with type 2, is their body is really overproducing insulin. And insulin is a fat storing hormone. So over time, that overproduction of insulin, which is a reflection again of how lifestyle and what we have on our plate, and maybe it's lack of exercise and all those things that kind of add up to too much insulin, or the body needing to produce to keep up with those glucose levels. So on the flip side, when our pancreas is pretty much just broken and there's nothing left, we have no insulin, right? So that is why we're losing weight. Our body needs insulin, obviously. It's a necessary hormone to function and to, in order to utilize glucose and the foods that we're eating. But it's, I've never thought about it the way you just said that, Omar, because it's funny, because it's true. It's the opposite of what's happening upon diagnosis, between the difference between type 1 and type 2. And insulin is just that fat driving hormone that's going to point you either way.
So I guess to follow up, is the same type of lifestyle that you're referring to about just managing your blood sugar period, and does that make reference to me? So like, in other words, are you eating as a type 1 diabetic the same way that we would recommend a type 2 diabetic eat?
Yes, I love that question too, because, and this is something that I get again from people that, that we know, that we spend time with. And, we get that reaction from people. It's almost almost pity, I guess. Oh, poor you, you live with diabetes. Well, I don't consider my diet a diabetic diet, whatever that looks like for some people or sounds like. It really is good, clean food, whole food. And carbohydrates can definitely be part of that eating plan. And this is something I coach too, and this is something I've learned and I continue to practice and coach, because a balanced plate, which is a combination of complex carbs, which we know has fiber mixed in there, which is so good, and then some healthy fats and a good source of protein. It's that balance that helps slow down any sort of glucose response. And that's whether you have diabetes or not. So that's optimal eating for all of us. And it's nutrient dense, because we all want that as well. I learned so much from both of you listening here to your podcast and all the things that you share. And I couldn't agree more with what you share. And it's important to get the truth out there, and it shouldn't be diet related. It really is about just understanding food and how to combine foods to reach blood sugar goals, energy goals, and to reach a healthy body weight.
So in terms of exercise, for example, would that be something, can somebody with type 1, specifically because of the insulin issue, exercise? I'm assuming if the blood sugar becomes too low, it can be a problem, correct?
Yeah, it's definitely a balancing act with that as well, because we have to time our exercise. We have to be aware of how much insulin we have on board, and different types of exercise will lower insulin, and more intense anaerobic exercise tends to spike it a little bit, because cortisol is being released. So that is a really tricky thing. Cortisol can really be tricky for those of us that are active and that notice that spike, when we're in the gym, or maybe, just doing something that's beyond the cardio level. So yeah, it's just about being aware of your numbers, what sort of insulin you do have on board, and knowing that it could be impacting where your glucose ends up following a exercise session. But it's very important. It's a big driver, and it's a big helper for anyone living with type 2, as we know.
Just to follow up, so if you know how we want to be insulin sensitive, does somebody with type 1 whose pancreas are not producing insulin, does it matter if they're insulin sensitive or not?
Yes, I would say yes to that, only because we still, it is what we do every day. It's the habits, and things like hydration and sleep and stress. There's that stress word again.
Right. Cortisol comes into that.
Yes. So it's another hormone that we have to be aware of, and we have to be aware of how it's being impacted by all the things we do every day. So it is such a math problem. It really is. It's just being aware. And again, these rules, I don't like the word rules, but these type of things that we need to just consider are real important for everybody. And it definitely helps managing type 1 diabetes better when you understand all the factors that kind of make up that puzzle.
So is sugar, the dietary sugar specifically, the primary driver in both of these the issues between type 1 and type 2 diabetes?
Or glucose maybe
Yeah.
would be better.
Yes, yeah, glucose. Well, in type 1, as we are, we're learning more of this now, that it's definitely an autoimmune response to some outside agent. That's a big question mark. I have no idea why I was diagnosed. I didn't have a history of it. Type 1 can be genetically influenced. But it could also be viral influence. So I don't know. So there's all these things, and I'm hearing different things with vaccines that have happened. And I'm seeing a increase. I'm very active online, and I have some support groups myself. But the different age groups, I mean, people are being diagnosed at all ages right now. So it's no longer a juvenile disease. Type 1.
Yeah, it used to be.
It used to be. Yeah. So, and I think that all. Yeah, go ahead. It's just pointing to all the autoimmune issues that
right.
That our planet is seeing right now.
And same with type 2. Used to be children would get it, and now adults would get
Type
it.
1.
Yeah, they would type 2 actually, and they used to call it adult onset.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's just type 2.
Type 2. That's so true. I know. And children are getting type 2 as well.
Yeah, I know
it's just a sad,
it's
sad
crazy,
state.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yes. But there's hope. I'm big on hope. Yeah. It's just about trying to educate and influence, and just trying to, to reach people.
So we can exercise, but we have to make sure, if we have type 1, to take our insulin at the right time. If you eat carbohydrates, do you then have to ensure you take some insulin before you eat the carbohydrates, I'm assuming?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So those are two different differences between type 1 and type 2 right there. But in terms of diet, what would there be any differences?
I don't think there should be any differences. I have coached people with both prediabetes type 2 and type 1. So, and it's, I'm just a big believer in good, healthy foods. So that's always my recommendation. I mean, nobody's going to fail eating good, healthy foods. So, and it definitely helps anybody living with any disease. So with type 1 or type 2, yeah, I'm convinced that, the same diet fits both disease. But again, it's still individual. So it's still an individual's lifestyle, their activity level, what type of foods they like. It's all those things that we consider when we, design our own eating plan.
Are there any supplements that you recommend managing both of, type 1 and type 2 diabetes?
I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no. Only
There are
because,
with type 2.
yeah, there's definitely, and maybe Lori, you could probably shine some light on this, because I'm not a big believer. I'm a big believer in supplementing vitamins and minerals that we're deficient in, just to keep those levels up. I think that's important, to first get it from food. Like myself, I do take some supplements just to support, like my heart health and circulation and all of those sort of things. And that's just a preventive. It's not necessarily solving a problem. Like CoQ10 is one. I take some omega-3s. I recommend that for anybody that asks about it. And again, as a coach, that's not something that I can prescribe by any means, but it does come up in conversation sometimes, and I always refer them back to their doctor just to see what they think, if there is any sort of a deficiency that they need to kind of supplement with a good vitamin or mineral. Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Omar.
Yeah, no, I was just curious, and I realize now, especially with the scope of this particular topic, where it's just the needs of an individual are so vast between what the type 1 diabetic needs as opposed to the type 2 diabetic thing. And that's why I'm fascinating, because I think this is actually the first time we've had someone specifically reference type 1 predominantly. And I definitely had a big misconception about a lot of it, because I've always thought it was like blood sugar base, end of story kind of thing. That's my ignorance.
Sure. Well, there's just a lot of pieces to it. Yeah. There can be. And, we do better when we know all the different factors, for sure.
What happens to, say, a woman who has, like you, type 1 diabetes and then enters menopause or perimenopause even?
Yes, that's interesting. I have written some articles about that. that has impacted me on a very big level. So I entered perimenopause in my late 40s. And just to backtrack too, I have been, for about more than 20 years now, I've been really on track with my blood sugar and my A1C. And I've got some great tools that help me with that, good insulins. We wear what's called continuous glucose monitors. That's very trendy right now for people even without diabetes.
Right.
But it is a game changer for those of us that really need to know our numbers around the clock. So, and that's another huge and very, very helpful tool. So that, when we were talking about exercise before, we're definitely looking at it more when we're exercising. It's great to get that information, knowing whether we're going up or down and how to treat it, or if we need to treat it with insulin or a snack, right? So either way, it is all about knowing which way you're heading and, how you need to make those adjustments. But with, and I've already forgotten your question. I got off sidetrack there for a minute, talking about hormones.
I forgot. Oh, it was about menopause.
Menopause. Well,
see?
Yes. Well, think about
That's
menopause.
A symptom.
Yes, it is. Sure is. And it's surely going to come, right? It's not one of those things we can avoid. It's just when it happens. But, estrogen and all of the female hormones, so it's the progesterone, the testosterone, and of course, there's some other hormones that are kind of on the side with that as well, like DHEA. But estrogen, when that starts to drop, and this is what I experienced personally, and I worked very close with my doctor after realizing this, but suddenly my insulin sensitivity, so this is that question we were talking about is that important for type 1s to want insulin sensitivity? Yes, we do, most definitely. So the insulin that I had been taken for, again, very routine, it works. It's always worked. It's kept me even. It's kept me in balance. It goes with what I eat. Again, I'm a little more routine maybe than some, but when suddenly your hormones are starting to drop, that's affecting the other hormone, which is insulin. So I had to increase my insulin dose by almost 50%.
Wow, that's interesting.
It was, it was a little frustrating. It was, it was one of those, well, this is not adding up. I'm all about 2 + 2 = 4, but that wasn't the case. But, I guess in the good part with that is at least I was finding out. I did some research. I found out a lot of this kind of on my own, and just kind of reaching out to some other ladies that I knew with diabetes and menopause. And we all said the same thing. And then, of course, we confirmed it, with the medical literature and all that, yes, it definitely does happen. And it's a shame that the doctors are not necessarily having this conversation with women with type 1 at this stage of our life, just to prepare us. So I ended up really kind of tightening up even more on my lifestyle habits. And another thing that happened was, we were talking about vitamins and minerals. I was noticing as well that, like, my B vitamins and my D3, and my iron, and what else was it that was just, yes, it was just those. Those were the vitamins and minerals that were just really, really low. And vitamin D is another great influence with our metabolism. So, and I live in Florida, and my D was low. It's like, what is going on? I never in my whole entire life living in Florida have I had low vitamin D. So I had to supplement with that. So that was when I had to kind of gear up on these supplements to get those levels back up. It took a little bit more time with the insulin. It took me a little bit more time figuring out those doses. And then I eventually, after about 1.5 years, and I put on extra weight. I put on about 10 pounds, which would
That's from the extra insulin. Probably.
Absolutely. It just added up to it. It made sense once I knew, which was, that was the saving grace. Once it, I guess it makes it feel better. I don't know, but it did, because at least it made sense at that point. So then it was just trying to, again, I'm getting my levels back up, and being patient with that insulin, knowing that I was going to be able to back off of it a little bit. But I did end up going on hormone replacement therapy, and I started off very low dose just to see how it was going to go. And I continue doing that now, and I've found my happy place. My insulin levels, or my insulin doses, I should say, are back to where they were. I'm now in post-menopause. So this has taken 4 to 5 years. I've been in balance and feeling pretty good for close to 3 years now. But it did take a few years just to figure it all out and just to get it all back in balance.
Yeah, no, listen, it's a testament to your patience and just sticking with it and rolling with all the punches that dealing with this disease and life in general takes you. So I definitely commend you for that.
Oh, yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Melissa, this has been really enlightening.
I know it.
I was very confused about just the distinction between the two. I think you definitely wrapped up it well and made me at least more aware of just the distinction. So I thank you for that. So I just want to give the audience an opportunity for them to be able to follow what you do, because you do help both type 1 and type 2 diabetics in your practice. So just if you could give us your website, your social media handles, and everything we can do to keep in touch with what you're up to.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yes. And my website is Abundant Health with Melissa, and you can find me on social at Blood Sugar Boss. So that is my handle.
And I love that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I also have a private Facebook group, but the easiest way is probably just to contact me through my website. And I have some free resources on there that they can sign up and stay in touch with me and continue to learn more.
Well, you did fantastic and really highlighted the difference, which is crucial for so many people.
It really is.
So, and hopeful for those with type 1. So
yes,
thank you.
Yes, hope. Yes, there is hope. That's my favorite. That's my favorite tail end of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Melissa.
Thank you. Yeah, this has been a pleasure.
Likewise. Have a great rest of the day.
Yeah. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of This Podcast Burns Fat. We're so excited to have you as a listener, and we're hoping that you've really enjoyed the content as well. And if you did, please run over to iTunes and provide a rating and or review. It will go a long way in helping us continuously build our listenership up so that we could provide you with excellent content regarding fat loss, weight management, and just an overall healthy lifestyle. Thanks so much. Have a great night.